All right. This is fun. All right. This is like one of my favorite topics. And you and I, this was our
Okay.
first topic that we wanted to do for this podcast because I think for both of us, for you probably too, it was like an early, um, it was something early on that I realized, which was like connecting the dots between oh, I can see how like this happened in my life, which led to this, which led to that, which led to that. And that kind of yeah, that kind of like kickstarted a lot of my personal development journey.
Mhm.
And that was like, yeah, over 10 years ago. But that helped me shift out of the victim, which is what we'll get into, is how to look at things from a perspective of why is this happening like to me and look at it more from a perspective of, what is this here to teach me?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So today, if you're just joining the show, we are going to talk about this idea that every experience that we go through, good or bad, is here to teach us something. And there's a reason that it had to happen that way.
Mhm.
And instead of, being, like you said, a victim of the circumstance or the victim of the situation, how can we take the learnings and the wisdom and really grow from that experience and step more into like who we came here to become? So we're going to share a little bit about our own experience with that, give some examples, and give you some takeaways at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the biggest perspective shifts because once you do this, it lightens up your whole world because you're no
Yeah.
longer, and I think uh, so many of us have such a strong hold on control, which is like a whole other topic, but this is a perfect way to like actually be in control in like a very healthy way by not being just like a victim of your circumstance and just being like tossed around in like the life washing machine is the
Yeah.
analogy I just thought
Wherever,
of.
wherever it's throwing you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, do you have an experience where yeah, you realize this for yourself?
Um, there's a lot of experiences. I mean, I do think early on, in terms of relationships, like the first long relationship I was in, which was on and off for like 10 years. So that was kind of the first big epiphany I had of this, like, oh, there's a reason that I'm experiencing this because
Mm.
like we eventually broke up. And I remember a friend saying, "Oh, like you seem totally okay. Like, how are you out going to dinner?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, yeah, I'm sad, but I also knew that the relationship needed to end. Like it wasn't going anywhere." And so that was the first time where I was like, "Okay, yeah, this hurts, it's painful, but I needed to learn to let go and I needed to learn to like trust myself because for a while I had kind of known like the relationship was probably not going anywhere and I hadn't done anything about it. And so eventually he ended things, which of course felt like rejection, even though
Yeah.
I knew like it probably wasn't going anywhere. So that was kind of the first like big epiphany I had around this. And then I'll just kind of share another example later on in my dating life, where I dated someone on and off for a couple of years and ultimately eventually found out that he was married the whole time.
Mm.
And of course, I didn't know this. And, as angry as I was, I also had to like take a look at myself and be like, okay, what is this teaching me? Because honestly, like I had tons of friends like within that year who had been cheated on and all kinds of stuff like that. And deep down, I kind of thought that would never happen to me. And so this was like a big wake up call, like, yeah, well, anything is possible, clearly. And, but the biggest learning there was really like, I had to look at myself, like, what in me allowed this to transpire? Like, I had ignored so many red flags. so many yellow flags, and there was so many times where I gave him the benefit of the doubt when I shouldn't have, gave him so many chances. And so it really was the biggest learning opportunity for me in relationships to say, like, okay, what in me believed, one, that I was worth this type of treatment, if you will, like, he was never available, all kind of stuff. And then what in me was willing to settle for that? Like, why was I willing to settle for that? And so at that point, I kind of just like drew a line in the sand and was like, no more. Like, this will not ever happen again. Like, I don't care if someone's, whatever the situation is, but I know how I would like to be treated, and I'm only going to settle for that. And the funny thing was, like, the next person I dated was like the best, treated me the best I've ever been treated.
Mm.
So it was kind of like I needed that really hard lesson for me to draw that line in the sand, to then be able to see what was actually possible, like how, I could be treated in a relationship. And so that gave me that new example to go on.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I, as much as I wanted to, be mad at the other person and all that stuff, I had to like take that responsibility myself, because clearly I allowed it to happen. So, you know,
Right, and that's a powerful reframe. That is so powerful, but, also just a little disclaimer, it's not about, self-blame and shaming yourself or judging yourself.
percent.
Um, it is just simply, well, let me look and see. You're not in control of another person or an external circumstance, but something there's a reason why that's entering into your life. And if you look at things like everything's a lesson and it's like, okay, this is popping up in my life. What is this here to teach me? Then you can have that reframe that you had and then realize that you weren't setting the certain boundaries for yourself and then you stood for yourself and then that situation is gone. It's not going to enter your life again because you set a clear boundary against it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Learned a lesson. And one other thing too, that was that I was also kind of settling in like what I wanted. Like, I was like, oh, well, I can accept the fact that we're long distance right now, even though deep down I really didn't want to do long distance, but I was settling,
mhm,
you know. Or when we were in the same town, I was like, oh, I can deal with the fact that he doesn't have much time. And I was like giving him excuses. So I think the other part of it is too, it helped me to see like, okay, I have to be clear in what I want and what I don't want, and
mhm,
not, like you said, go back and forth with the boundaries or with settling. And so I think those experiences can really make it clearer to you of what you do and don't want. So when you move forward in the next relationship, you can clearly see, is this
mhm.
something I want or don't? And you can make a decision from there versus just like going along with it.
Yeah, for sure. You know what I just thought of too is how this can apply in a career situation as well. Of
Yeah.
realizing instead of just complaining all the time about how terrible your boss is, how much like you hate this and that about your job, is taking a look at, well, how can I change this situation? What is it about this current job that I really don't like? And then what can I do about it?
Mm,
You know, like I've been in situations where if there's a job that I'm not particularly happy in, sure, like it's totally okay to like vent and have sessions of being like, oh, I really don't like this and don't like that. That helps bring clarity as well, I think. But if you're ruminating over how horrible your job is or how horrible your boss is or this or that, then you'll just remain stuck and you won't move forward. So as soon as I realized that, okay, this is like really not a situation that I want to be in, and I gave it, I mean, I gave it years, you know, I was in the same situation for a long time, similar to you and your relationship. But
yeah.
then it just got to a point where I really realized, well, wait a second, like, what is this here to teach me? And I learned that in this particular situation, that I was undervaluing myself.
Mm,
And I was sticking with something because I didn't I didn't believe I was worth more. Intellectually, I did. Intellectually, I was like, no, like I should be making
right,
more, or like I should
yeah,
be in this situation or that situation. Like there's no reason, but it wasn't embodied yet. And
right.
that is the difference. And that's kind of like the whole point of this podcast as well, is to um, help people move into an embodied space, because you can understand something intellectually, and that's great. That's the first step, is having that first level of like self-awareness. That's huge, but the actual change in your reality doesn't happen until it becomes embodied. So for me, it was speaking about it to a trusted friend who I knew I could reflect things to, and who had my best interest, and was like, hey, like, you can do so much better. Why don't you just put feelers out there for another job? And at first I was like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to have another job. But then,
Yeah.
because I was so comfortable, which can be the same thing. Like, this is the same thing with the relationship. It's like, oh, I don't want to look for a new relationship. Like, I just want to make this one work, because I've already invested so much time in like this space, in this relationship, professional, intimate, whatever. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, once I really just took a stand for myself and was like, I cannot, then I immediately, with like very little effort,
Mhm.
got a new job that was way better than the one that I had. And that did reflect my self-worth, you know? And I can relate to this as well in a relationship. You finally end the relationship, and then somebody new pops right in. Maybe it's not a relationship that sticks, but like somebody else comes in, you're like, oh, to me, that's always confirmation that the right decision was made, because somebody else came in so fast.
Yes.
Um,
100%. Yeah, and I see that with the work experience. I had kind of a similar one, but I see that a lot even with clients who are
mhm.
stuck, feeling stuck in a job where maybe
Yes.
comfortable for whatever reason. And this was a lesson that I kind of wish I would have learned when I was still in corporate, was that what can we do about the current? Like what can
Hmm.
we change to make it better for the here and the now versus like, being stuck in that kind of negative and pessimistic attitude, which just makes the situation worse. And then once we've got to a better place with the current, then okay, then take responsibility. If you want something different, you have to look for something different. Like,
Yeah.
I think sometimes people get stuck in that, like, let's just complain about the experience and how bad it is. But it's like, okay, well, what can we do to change it if it's not working? And it's no one's fault or nobody's to blame, but it's just, okay, this situation's not working anymore. So how can I empower myself to change it to a better one?
Yeah. And what we put our attention on expands.
Exactly.
So if you're always, again, it's one thing, there's no shame or judgment around venting. Like, we all need to like vent about things, and I think that can be really healthy, but
Yeah.
it's to a certain extent. Then if it's you're always complaining about the same thing, it's you have to interrupt that thought and move into something else, because then you're just going to create more negative experiences in your environment.
Yeah. And a lot of times that narrative is actually going on in your mind, like in your
Right.
gut. So you may not be saying it aloud. For
Mm-hmm.
me, I was like, oh, I'm sure on the surface, I don't think I looked all that stressed, but in my mind, I was like, oh my God, I have so much to do. Oh my God, there's so many emails. And I was just like annoyed and like stressed about everything. But the narrative in my mind was what was making it worse. And so
Mm-hmm.
just interrupting that pattern can be huge, and it's not always easy to do, but just like recognizing what thoughts are coming in and are 95% of them negative, and then okay, how can I like flip that to something else that's going to be better, that's going to better serve me and keep me in a more positive light while you're working through that change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we're talking about it as if it's like this easy light switch. It's definitely, it takes practice. It definitely takes practice. Like this is something, but once you just accumulate evidence, which you can start doing right now, I'm sure everybody that's listening, watching this can probably reflect on an experience where something didn't work out that they wanted to work out, and they were grateful that it didn't work out.
Mhm.
So it could be the smallest of things. Like it could be you wanted your friend to come over today and then they bailed on you last minute, but then you ended up having the best day ever with your mom or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But even experiences like that, I think with whenever we're doing this kind of work, again, to have it really be embodied in the system, you have to start accumulating evidence of where you've seen this happen in your life. Because initially, and I think we're giving big examples and they're true examples, but
Mhm.
you can literally just start connecting the dots, with that example I just gave, like in very small micro ways, and just start accumulating that evidence for yourself. That alone will massively shift the patterning, and you'll start recognizing, okay, wait, maybe there's like a lesson in here for me with this situation, or maybe this is happening to serve me. Like even
Yeah.
small situations for me of uh like making new friends in a new area, but some friends just weren't sticking. Like we kept trying to get together or something, and it just like wasn't working out, or I don't know, they would just fade kind of out of my life, even though I didn't want them to intellectually. I was like, no, damn, I kind of wanted to hang out with them. But then come to find out it's they're so not right for where I'm at currently in my life or whatever it is. And then I see it, and you know,
You're
so
like, okay, that's why it happened that way.
mhm.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
think our mind is very wants to focus on what's wrong or what might hurt us or what might be the uncomfortable thing. That's naturally where it goes because its job is to protect us. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, like you said, it is a kind of a training of it to focus on the good of like, okay, yes,
Mhm.
canceled on me today, but that might end up being a good thing because then I had more time to go do this, or I had time to hang out with family, whatever it is. And looking at everything that's happening is happening for our good. Like, um,
Always.
literally
Always.
everything, even the tiniest things like that. And yeah, I've just learned so much from like human design and the gene keys.
Mhm.
It's just opened up such a new light for me around this whole topic. So yeah, I am with you on that. It's not an easy thing to flip the switch of the mind, but it just takes practice.
It really just takes practice. And again, like really maybe taking a moment to reflect on your life thus far and see how one situation led to another situation, which led to another situation, and connecting the dots between each experience, and see how you wouldn't have gone here without that other experience, even if it was like a really intense, you know, negative experience. It brought light in other areas, always. It always will, which is super triggering for I think a lot of people to hear. But like even so on that note, because I get it. It's like how can this horrible thing that happened to me be a positive thing? And it's not
Mhm.
that the situation itself is positive, it's about what lesson am I here to learn from this experience. So for me, growing up with two like very emotionally unavailable parents, and some other things as well, a lot of verbal abuse, but all of that taught me to look within and develop a lot of self-love, and not be reliant on external people to give me the validation that I need, and find safety and security within myself.
Mhm.
And that's a big theme for me on my life of what I'm here to learn. So, and I just know that. And
Yeah, and two, I think like we can tend to look at it just from ourselves, but like you've learned that. And so in you learning that and you being very strong in that, you can share that with others and you can help others who may not naturally have that gift of
yeah.
being strong in their self-worth and not needing the outside validation and
Mhm.
etc. So I think our learnings are for us and then they're also for the people in our lives.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it also too because again, this is like a little bit of a bigger topic that we can get into in other episodes, but when you shift that within yourself, everything around you also shifts.
Mhm.
It's, my relationship with my parents is great now because I've shifted so much and moved through so much and really transmuted that my childhood experience into what the point of it was and really have started to learn those lessons. And now the way my family appears to me is like it's a different reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I love that because you looked at it like, what is the point of this versus
right.
this happened to me and this is so bad, and just like focusing on how it could be not great and
Yeah.
pivoting that to, okay, what was the point? I had to go through this experience to be the person that I am today.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be the
Mhm.
person I am today if I didn't go through that. So clearly,
Mhm.
like that was part of your soul's journey to come here and
Mhm.
experience, and to move in who you are today. And probably even because of the work that you're doing today is partly due to that
Mhm.
experience.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and that's another thing too is I look at the word regret as a really intense, strong word. I'm like, "Oh, I do not throw around like, oh, I regret not uh I don't know, getting my hair cut last week." Like I don't throw that around like it's nothing because I
Mhm.
think personally I think that's such a strong word and in everything that we're talking about, like I don't regret anything in my life. Sure, there's things where I'm like, "Oh, I could have handled that situation better," and I wish I had maybe handled that situation better, but I learned something from it, and then when a similar situation came back up, I didn't respond in the same way, or I didn't react rather in the same way.
Mhm.
So, I think kind of doing this practice of pausing and saying, what is this here to show me? What is this here to teach me? Instead of why is this happening to me? Instead of coming from that victim place and coming from a more empowered position, it also eliminates a lot of those feelings of regret, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm with you on that word. Like I do my best not to use that because I feel like it
Mhm.
is very disempowering, and the words we say are imprinting our unconscious mind. So
Yeah.
when we say I regret doing that, or I wish I didn't do that, or whatever, and we blame ourselves for all this stuff that we've done in the past, we're basically invalidating our former self. Like,
Mhm.
and when you think about it, it's like, well, in that moment, that's what I felt like was right. So if we're constantly invalidating and saying like, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or regretting that, so then that creates the scenario where you don't trust yourself now because you've said, oh, all these other things you did, you shouldn't have done. And so you shouldn't trust yourself. And I feel like the other, that's the other work that can be challenging, is trusting yourself and your decisions. So how we talk about what has happened in the past can have an effect on your present and future and how you go about moving through life, and trusting yourself to know what's right for you.
Yeah, and that's like okay, so that's massive, is how all of this actually it's building blocks for self-trust,
Yeah.
massively,
Yeah.
because yeah, I mean, it allows you I'm just kind of reflecting on my own life of decisions that I've made. I don't look on at any decision that I made and think, "Oh, I wish I didn't do that," because Yeah, I actually I trusted myself and I moved through with the experience, and it was 100% the experience that I was meant to go through at that time because of all the lessons that I then gained out of it.
Mhm.
You know, so that I think is probably, yeah, I mean, this whole practice is actually what has significantly built my self-trust and like confidence. That's
Mhm.
a huge aspect of it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, because
And,
you're validating yourself of like, yeah, there was a reason I chose to do that. I was meant to go through that experience clearly because I did.
mm-hmm,
And how it happened, like, this and two, it's like there's really no sense in spending energy on something that's already done and like saying
right.
credit or getting upset about it because it's already happened.
Mm-hmm.
And two, like I hear this a lot from clients who've, say maybe they were in a long relationship and they're like, oh, I wasted all this time.
Yes.
And that's a tricky one because
Mhm.
it's like, well, but if you didn't have that experience,
Uh-huh.
you might be going through it right now. Like
Mhm.
we don't know what would have happened, but I do feel like every person we have dated, every person that's come into our life, however much time we spent with them, yes, it might have been a lot, but clearly, like, we needed it to be that long to get the lesson from it or whatever.
Yeah.
Needed it to
Same with the job,
exactly.
you
Yes.
know?
Like you, when you finally ended it or left the job or got a new job or whatever, draw the line in the sand. That was when it was meant to happen for you.
Mhm.
So we just have to trust that like life and everything is moving as it should. Um, and so yeah, there is no regret. It's just it is what it is. It happened how it was meant to happen.
And it's okay, you know?
Yeah,
It is
exactly.
totally okay. Like give yourself that grace.
Yep.
And I think that this is more of the work of like true self-care. I mean, I think yes, taking a bath is lovely and wonderful and definitely a part of
Yeah.
self-care, but there's different containers of self-care and I think this is a large part of self-care that's not really spoken about too often.
This is the mental, emotional. This is how you're
Mhm.
treating your inner self, your inner voice, your because I feel like that can be the really hard one to do
Yeah.
when we want to beat ourselves up, and that's actually more common than the other. And so learning to treat ourselves with care and really I think too like just facing these situations because it's easy to just like have that experience and move on, want to move on and not ever look at it again because it's too
Mhm.
painful or whatever. But if you don't look at it and reflect on it and learn something from it, then you didn't really gain the wisdom from that experience. And who knows, you may end up having to experience it again. Like
Yes.
bad, but I will say that happened for me in all these different relationships. There were many common themes, and until I got the darn lesson,
Mhm.
it kept happening.
Yeah,
So,
same.
so yeah, as bad as it can feel sometimes to look at it and reflect, that's actually the necessary work.
Yes, you have to do that to transmute it and move it out of your life. Like I had the same thing. I kept attracting so many people, like friends in my life who would show up with very similar behaviors as my mom towards me.
Mm, mhm.
And it just kept happening through like very sneaky ways through different friendships. And then it even happened in the workplace as well. And it wasn't until I noticed the pattern. I started to notice it because I started asking the question of why does this keep happening? Not why is this happening to me, but what is going on here? Why? Because I'm not somebody who likes drama. I think I choose friends well. I'm a fairly kind person, I think. So why am I attracting these people that then are having this explosive behavior? And yeah, it wasn't until I recognized the pattern and then I was like, oh no, like
Yeah.
no more, and really stood up for myself. And then it disappeared. I haven't had relationships like that since, you know?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it just disappears.
You decided
But
wasn't for you and you didn't
Mhm.
allow it anymore.
No. So
Mhm.
I'm curious for those listening or watching, if you are starting to connect any dots in your own life. If you are, leave it in the comments. Holly and I would love to, yeah, hear
Yes.
about
Yeah.
these stories because we all have all the experiences we've gone through. We can all connect the dots if you just take a moment to do that. And sometimes it can be for overarching life themes, such as what you and I are discussing with being involved in toxic relationships and situations. Those can be harder for us to see without the help of some, like a coach or a friend to, or a therapist to reflect that back to us. So definitely either talk to somebody who you trust that has your best interest, and maybe they have like a zoomed out lens. They might be able to point some of these patterns out to you, because it's always easier to see other people's patterns and behaviors than see your own. Like it's hard to, what is that expression? Like you can't see the painting when you're standing in the frame. And we're all standing in the frame of our own painting. So
Yeah.
so definitely seek the advice of others if you're not able to connect those dots. But again, if you can start creating this process and start creating those new pathways in your brain by just connecting the dots on the smallest of things of, oh, I remember like when that job didn't work out, but then this other job that's incredible came like 6 months later, or that friendship fell away, but that ended up being the greatest thing for me, or whatever, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah, and that actually reminded me of a time where like I was laid off from a job and then
Hmm.
a month later I ended up finding a job that was like a much better fit and like
Oh yeah.
my alley, like the type of work I wanted to do. So even in those things, I think it's very easy to just look at, oh my gosh, this bad thing is happening to me, but who knows what's on the other side of it. So it's like if you're going through something right now that's really hard and challenging, just know that um it can be for your greatest good. Like you have no idea what's like right around the corner. If you choose to see it that way and be open to the possibilities. So
And I can hear now, because I've heard this from clients in sessions, like having these discussions as well. I can hear it now of like, well, but I gotta pay my bills. Like, what am I gonna do now without a job, or all of that kind of stuff. But just simply by you being open, like exactly what Holly just said, just by you being open to the
Mhm.
possibility of this happened for a reason, and something else is going to come down the line that's going to better serve you. Just simply being open, something is going to come in. But if you're not open to it, then yeah, it's going to be a harder, longer road,
Mhm.
because you're feeding that same narrative of, this is horrible, look at what's happening to me, look at what's happening to my life, like this thing is happening again, blah 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 blah, and you're just continuing to feed that old narrative, and you're just going to stay in that loop.
Yeah, and it's a much lower frequency too when we're focused, on that kind of negative side of it. And so then you don't tend to attract like what you actually want. You're
Mm-hmm.
a bit more of the same. So yeah, your perspective, your openness, your attitude around it all can influence really what's coming next.
Yeah.
So, so yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think shall we leave them with some reflection questions to kind of if they want to get deeper
Yes.
into this for themselves?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when something comes up, one thing you can do to like interrupt that is asking, yeah, just simply ask, what might this situation or experience be showing me, be trying to tell me?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then just sit with that for a second, sit with it. Think of, you may not get the answer right away, and that's also okay. It's, again, it's this practice of doing it and staying open to what can come in from even just asking the question.
Yeah, when you pose the question, you may not get the answer right then, but you never know in a day or two, something may come
Hmm.
to you. You're like, oh, that's it. But you
Yeah.
open the question to kind of like let the universe do its thing and bring to you what you might need to know.
Hmm. And
You're-
that, yeah, and that can be open in like how that can show up for you. Maybe it's like you have a discussion with a friend and your friend is like, "Oh, well, don't you see like blah 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 blah?" Or maybe it comes in the form of you come across an article that really resonates, or you're reading a book and the character goes through a situation and you're like, "Oh, that's timely." Like, or don't take those things as just coincidences, like if you open up a question, you will get an answer.
Mhm. Totally.
Um, oh, I really like this posing this question as well, is who am I becoming through this?
Yeah.
How is this shaping me as a person? Or reflecting back on past experiences to think about, who did this allow me to become?
Hmm.
Like when you're thinking about that breakup or that job loss, like who did it force you to become?
Hmm.
And writing that down.
Yeah, because sometimes our greatest, um, strengths and attributes we've
Hmm.
developed because of the difficult things that we've been through. And like this is an exercise that we do in like NLP, is helping people go back to an experience to gain the learnings, to gain the wisdom. And you're basically helping your unconscious mind understand why it had to happen this way.
Hmm.
So you can kind of let go of all of that extra, the charge that it may still have. If it still triggers you or still brings up a lot of emotion, then that might be a sign that you do need to kind of go back and reflect and gain those learnings and wisdom so that you can feel confident in yourself to move forward.
Hmm.
So
That's a
yeah,
really good point.
I love that one. That's like my favorite.
Yeah, and again, like this is an extreme example, but from growing up in an abusive household, I can say like, well, be, I'm much more empathetic. I can easily put myself in other people's shoes.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I don't judge a book by its cover because nobody would have ever guessed what was happening behind closed doors in my life.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, it definitely, I'm really proud of the person I am today. And that definitely came from all those early experiences. It just like your experiences definitely shape who you are and they can harden you, which I think happens if you remain, or well, I know it happens if you remain in that victim mentality. It really hardens you against the world. You can really start to feel like everyone's out to get you. Um, you know, everything is hard in life. Like I hear that a lot I've heard that from clients as well, of like, well, everything, like life is just hard. And I'm like, oh boy, if that is your belief, you will certainly be shown that time and time again. So really watch these like words and phrases that come out of your mouth and take pause. Yeah.
Yeah, because it definitely all of it has an effect. So it's like what you speak out loud is what you're creating.
Yeah.
Um, so
Oh, and another point though to this exercise is if you do catch yourself saying things like that, you don't need to judge yourself for it. It's
right.
totally okay. It's the point is that you're catching it
Yeah.
and you're willing to work on it and move around it. So a big part of this is to not then judge yourself for
Right.
making those past decisions or whatever.
Yeah, just having the awareness alone, it will naturally help you to start changing that, like
Yeah.
without even having to really try that hard. But if you're just aware of it and you notice it,
Hmm.
that is doing something. There's no need to beat yourself up for sure.
No.
So good point. Yeah.
Well, I guess we can end it there. If anybody has any questions for us, feel free to leave them in the comments. Holly and I can
Yeah, and share your
give you
experiences.
some.
If you've
Yeah.
noticed, patterns in your life or noticed something from the experiences that you've had that you feel like has really changed the trajectory or, determined who you've become and what you learned from that, feel free to share with us. You can tag us in your social media and your stories. And we would love to hear from you. And if there's any other topics you would like for us to talk about, if you want us to go deeper into this, we certainly can. And yeah.
Yeah, we look forward to future episodes. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of everything personal development, but more so with the focus of being really practical, sharing life experiences, and really helping these ideas and practices be embodied and use them practically. So we'll get into like negative self-talk, self-love stuff, more self-trust.
Yes. Yes. Self-trust is a big one. We'll definitely be talking
Hmm.
a lot more about that. So
Yes.
yeah, we hope to have you guys join us on the next episode.